FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Cilauro, no call! Score!
Salamini for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Blasts. Yes! A ditch!
Viljevic.
Beautiful ball! Here's Bozanic. They might have won it!
The Pioneers with George Danikian and George Kotzanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Yes, time to raise the levels on the old FNR.
You know, I look back and I say, hey, I was part of that. And I was part of referees. Referees used to be 40 before they could run lines. I made it they could run lines at the age of 22. We changed things with juniors. I mean, the whole Kanga running, playing junior football on half grounds and one kick football. But the most important thing that I did, and I was there and I fought and we got it after 2 years, was to get substitutions instead of interchange instead of substitution. And I got that for the over 35s as well. So now you look at football and you've got 16, 17 kids playing football, not just the 12 as it was in the old days. And I used to get all these, because I'm a Greek, the cranky Greeks that would be screaming out, "What about my son? What about my son?" And then you see the growth in women's football now. With Sam Papasavas, the late Sam, we had lunch many, many years ago with some American people. And they were the people that were in charge of women's football. And he said, we've got something like 600,000 registered women playing football. And in a good American accent, the bloke says to me something like, and the women's dollar has got the same value as the man dollar. The only thing is women can become president and they can also do things that men don't like doing, like sweeping the floor, etc. And that was a lesson I learned many, many years ago, very early, to realise the value of everyone playing the game, because the dollar's the dollar wherever you go.
Shrewd man.
You mentioned referees.
Yes.
Referees are under enormous pressure these days.
Well.
In fact, they've been given an assistant, a video assistant. It's called VAR. You had a run-in with VAR? What do you make of the video assistant referee?
I haven't seen it. I have not seen it.
You're not missing much, let me tell you. That's not one of the parts of the game that you'll enjoy, let me tell you, John.
Let's take us back, George. You mentioned this man, has done just about everything at the Heidelberg club, as well as so many other roles in the game. I think he's been the longest standing president of the club for a number of years, or was. What were some of the great characters and some of the great players who gave you enormous pleasure, not only to watch but to support?
Well, if I go through Heidelberg, I mean, you can just about name all the team from 1972 up to 1980, 82. I think we had 8 players playing for Australia, representing the club. The players that I've enjoyed, I enjoyed Pat Bannon, I enjoyed Jimmy Rooney. I think I've mentioned to you before when I go, and I remember 3 blokes playing up front by the name of Bulovic, Cole and Payton. Not about trio. And who was behind them? Jimmy Rooney, Jimmy Campbell, Johnny Eisendorn, Jimmy Tansey. I mean, I can remember this team because it meant something. They're all, and to this day, George here started setting up with myself, ex-players, ex-committee, and all these players are coming back. And it's good to see Kenny Taylor coming back, Jimmy Campbell's coming back, Jimmy Criaris. Oh, you know all the boys. Con Rocovalis, Nick Rocovalis, Andy Bazikas, they're all there now.
Yeah.
These guys from 50 years ago still love the club. They reckon this was the family club when they came out from Scotland. You know, I think we had 7 Jimmys playing that time. All you had to do is say, "Oh, Jimmy," and everyone would turn around.
But tell us about Paddy Bannon. Tell me why he was one of your favourites.
He was a good soccer player.
Yeah,
he was a good communicator. He was a good captain. You knew he was playing the game. He loved the club. And he was one of the first ones that came out. And he made the club his home.
Tell us about my favourite story that you've got. Tell me about Noah's Ark.
Well, Noah's Ark, we sent out a goalkeeper called John Kennedy. I remember I was treasurer then. I gave him a cheque for $1,500, and we told him to go overseas and bring some players. So Johnny Kennedy went overseas, and the first 2 that he brought out, and they go 2 by 2. The first 2 was Vince Bannon and Ian Gibson. The second one was Pat Bannon and George Gillan. Then he brought out Sam Cook and Frank Donaghy. And I remember saying at that time, "This is Noah's Ark. What are we going to get next year?" But next year was 77, and then the National League started. I think Jim Adam was the first coach we had then, and he started bringing these blokes in, Jimmy Campbell and etc. Then the team really blossomed. I brought in Jeff Olver. He was from the under 18s. Yankos. Charlie Yankos was already playing for Heidelberg, and they had Johnny Margaritis was coach, and he hadn't seen him. I don't think you had, John, if you're listening. And he came on.
Actually. John Margaritis, if you want to call us 99449999, it's very simple.
And I got Gary Cole. The Victorian team had gone overseas to play in Umea. Umea wanted someone to play a friendly game because they were qualifying for some championship. So Victoria went overseas, and it was the first time Victoria travelled overseas, and I went with them. On the plane on the way back, this tall, blonde Hercules came up to me and said, "Mr. Dimtsis, can you arrange for me to come and play at Alexander?" So we got off the plane, and we approached John Van Hoboken at Ringwood, and we got Gary across. It was one of those nice things that Jim Mangopoulos did. He actually brought him. He refused Alan Davidson. He had a contract thing. If you didn't make it at Heidelberg, you wanted $3,000. Mangopoulos didn't agree to it. At least we played $3,000 and got Gary Cole.
You got value for money for that transfer for sure.
Oh, just a super guy and a super. I remember the Greek team came out.
Ake.
And then they came out. The goalkeeper came out next time, and he came up. He said, "Yanni," in Greek. He said, "Is that blonde bloke playing again?" Still? And I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, you know," he said, "my hands are still hurting." I think Gary Cole scored 4.
Gee.
You know, in that game against.
I bet you he didn't head one though, John.
No. I always get the story of Jimmy Payton. He said, "You know, he was tall, blonde, whatever. I was shorter. Still played the game." He said, "I scored 16 goals. He scored 16 goals. He was a hero. No one mentioned me." But Gary did get the accolades.
That was a formidable partnership, by the way, those two together.
Well,
if one didn't get you, the other did, let me tell you.
That's right.
Who were the teams that you loved to play against?
Oh, South Melbourne. I mean, that was the derby. And, of course, you played South Melbourne. JUST was another one. I was treasurer when we played at the Brunswick Street ground. And we played South Melbourne. And typical of the Greeks, they all come late. And, you know, every gate opened, then we had to open to let them in, because I think it was a crowd of about 25,000 people. And George, the difference between the game then and now is that when 20,000 people came in, 25,000, whatever it was, half went on one side of the ground and half the other. And then you'd have Heidelberg supporters, South Melbourne. It was just one of those fantastic days in a football ground. 2 weeks later we played Justin. I think we got about 15,000 that day. Again, the same thing. The atmosphere, it's electric. They were barracking for a club. Gary Cole told me a story. I think he was CEO at Victory at the time.
That's right, yes.
And I think Victory had won, and we had him as a guest speaker. And I asked the question to Gary. I said, "How would Heidelberg, have gone?" He said, "John," he said, "don't tell anyone." He said, "But if we had the training facilities, and we would have whopped them."
I'll go on record as saying it had nothing to do with the training facilities. Heidelberg would have whopped them.
Well, that was just...
It was just a special side.
But Gary said something else. When it was Heidelberg and South Melbourne and Croatia or JUST and Bologna, the people came and supported that club. He said, what we've got now, say at Victory, is that everyone comes along and they're all the tribe, but they're all barracking for a team that they didn't barrack for in the first place. I mean, the South Melbourne supporters come, they barrack for Victory. Heidelberg supporters come, they barrack for Victory. So that was the transition in the game, according to Gary at that time, and I don't disagree with it.
It's not been too bad.
Tommy Cumming, can you remember him?
Yes, I do.
Did he make an impact in your sides in those days?
Jesus, mate, I'd hate to have run into him. I remember sitting on the line. I was team manager for the Victorian team. McHenry was coach. And there was Cumming running up and down at speed. And I thought to myself, you talk about football being hard. I'd hate to run into this bloke. And he'd run past McHenry and he'd say, how long to go? McHenry would say, 3 minutes. He said, okay. The speed and the strength of that little bloke, I don't know what he looks like. I believe he's put on a bit of weight.
No, he's a pocket rocket. It looks spectacular.
Unbelievable.
I wouldn't be tackling him today either.
No.
Well, there was him and there was another bloke, Butch Kokoska. Do you remember Butch Kokoska?
Yeah.
They were the tough blokes, mate. You got past them, you had a broken leg.
Just taking you back to Fitzroy when
Yep.
we were at the Brunswick Street Oval.
Yes.
There was a couple of seasons there, State League.
Yep.
Do you recall, as part of the committee at the time, the resistance from the local council,
Oh.
how hard it was to get it over, how anti-soccer they were? Do you have a recollection of that?
That was terrible because, they wanted to walk their dogs through the ground.
Yeah.
They wanted to knock down the walls.
Yep.
Of course, they burnt one of the grandstands.
Yeah, I recall that.
They want Edinburgh Gardens is next door.
Yeah.
They wouldn't walk the dogs there. They wanted to walk them through the
pitch, the playing
But the
pitch.
thing was that at that time there was parking at the front and there was parking at the back with the railways. Now somehow they got into the council and all that parking became unavailable.
Yeah.
So Heidelberg couldn't play it. No one could play it at the Fitzroy ground anymore because there was no parking.
Yeah. So they
And they were there booking.
Yes, I was going to say they made it
they
difficult
were
for the
there
residents
booking.
as well.
That's where we played at Olympic Park.
Yeah.
And 1977, Mangopolis was president, I was treasurer.
Yeah.
We made the arrangement to play at Heidelberg.
Spent a bit of money.
Well, at that time, yes, we did.
Yeah.
We spent. We're still there 40 years later, and really to the committee that's there at the moment, they've got an $11 million project.
Yep.
That started. I'm not that close at the moment to know exactly where they are, but they've got money in the bank and they've got money coming from government, councils, fundraising, and Fitzroy ground Heidelberg is going to become something special.
Yeah. And you were part of laying the foundations for that.
Yeah, I was there 40 years ago. I was actually, Mangopolis was number 1 ticket holder and I was number 2 ticket holder when we moved over to Heidelberg. They're a council. They've got a lot of grounds to look after. For a long time there, we felt that we weren't really getting the assistance, but lately they've been very, very good to deal with.
It appears from the outset that
on
the outskirts that it's happening properly.
It's going to be a long-term project. If you spend $11 million,
Makes a difference.
oh, it does.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, more from John Dimtsis on the Pioneers.
Very good.
So far.
So far, so good. Brilliant, mate. I'm loving it.
What? Inside a minute.
Yeah.
1 minute yet.
Sounds great, though, doesn't it?
And then the last level is really good as well.
Yeah.
I can hear.
Well, he knows, you see. He understands what a microphone's all about. He's got the voice. He's got the voice. He knows his way, eh? By the way, I had dinner with Sir Zelman Cowan and his lovely wife at Yarralumla when I was a guest many years ago. I was invited because I was in the days of SBS. Yeah?
Those days, when you're president of Victoria, etc., Bob Hawke, Malcolm Fraser, Leacock.
There we go. We ready?
Yep.
As we discussed.
FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Mike's up. Welcome back to the Pioneers with our special guest John Dimtsis. I just want to reiterate, a member of the FFV Hall of Fame, a recent inductee of the member of the Heidelberg United Hall of Fame, for outstanding services to football. Not bad for someone who never kicked the ball in anger. So well done. Congratulations on those accolades. Thank you again for joining us. I know it's not easy now. Just recently, we'll just touch on it briefly, you have been having a little bit of bad luck with your health.
Oh yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah.
I got bowel cancer to start off with, and then for 12 months wanting to find out what was wrong with my heart, and at the end I had open heart surgery, 3 valves, goodness knows, 7.5 hours. I died twice, but I came back, and my heart surgeon sent a message to my doctor, says that I've done a Lazarus, which was good. George, I went from 100 kilo to 68.
Wow.
I did look like ET when I came out of the hospital, but now I'm back to about 95. But then I got this bloody melanoma on my bloody neck, which affected my hands and my legs. But, life goes on. And I'm enjoying it. And, when George came along and we started thinking of this past players and past committee, straight into it. And, I've got these blokes that haven't been in the game for 30 years, 40 years. They're coming back to the club, like Sam Karanikolopoulos and Roy Giftopoulos, who used to be around in the 70s. All the players, Wallace, Jim Criaris, all,
Take us back 1980. You took over from Theo Marmaras, one of the great names, and one of the guys who in his own way was a special pioneer.
Oh, there's a distinction that I share with Theo Marmaras and George Wallace. We're the only 3 people that have been President, Life Member and Hall of Fame. And you know what, George? I'm the only one still alive. But, I always think of Theo Marmaras as my hero. A lot of people didn't like him because he wasn't Heidelberg. But I saw the good side of him, and I saw that he was doing it for soccer. George Wallace, well, I was with Wallace for 25 years. If George had a problem, he'd ring up. But then again, he was a face. And people could go to the Soccer Federation, they go, and George would be sitting in the front office. G'day, George. G'day, my friend. George didn't remember all the names, but everyone was his friend. And I remember at a general meeting once, and people were coming up. I remember one bloke from Traralgon, I can't think of his name now, he said, "What's my name?" And I said, "Oh, for God's sake," I said, "I've got 400 people here. I don't remember every name." He said, "Next year I remembered it." And I told him, I said, "Hey, George, I remember your name." But George Wallace used to say, "Hello, my friend."
Yeah. He covered everybody.
He covered everyone, and he
Good
was
politician.
there. Don't forget, soccer was administered then by 3 people: Mrs. Kevin, George, and now there's 60. But I don't know anyone. I know Kimon. Apart from Kimon, I think you mentioned the CEO. Apart from that, I know no one. Soccer's not open like it used to be, mate.
Tell us about the great referees of those days.
Well,
you had to work with them.
Well, you had Boscovich.
Great character.
Character, and we had Chris Bambridge. and definitely the blokes that were really my mates, and they're still my mates. We still go for dinner. Johnny Fraser, Johnny Santa Isabel, Dennis Fitsinas, Frank Deek, Eugene Brazali. I mean, they were FIFA, except for Frank. They were all FIFA referees.
Jerry Connolly.
He wasn't FIFA,
No?
but he was a good referee.
Yeah.
I can't think of all of them now, but you know, a lot of the Greek boys there, and there was a camaraderie. I mean, they'd come to the Heidelberg ground, or I'd meet them at any other ground, and we'd all have a drink and something to eat after the game. South Melbourne was probably the best at that. That they would always had a table for the referees, and people, they knew the people. The referees would come in and say, "G'day, George." Now I see referees, and I said, "Who is this bloke?" You know, I don't even know if they're FIFA referees. We used to have FIFA referees. Well, the recognition was that this bloke has to be good to be able to get to that stage. I don't know. The game's changed.
It has. Life's changed. I'm really curious to know about a little bit about Jim Criaris. It's one of those mythical figures when I grew up who had left Heidelberg and gone on to Footscray JUST.
Yep.
But there's more to that. I want to know about his playing days, but then he also came back and did a lot of work at the club. Tell me about that.
Jimmy was an excellent player. He played for Heidelberg. I was treasurer. He wanted a move because he thought that was going to be better for his career, and the committee didn't stop him.
Yep.
And he went to JUST, and he was just part of a very, very... I mean, JUST was a team you wanted to go and watch. If you can remember Kondarius and Frank
Mikic.
I mean, Bulovic, all
the star-studded
Rostovsky.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a team there that could do anything. And Jimmy became part of that, but he was always a Heidelberg person. And when he came back, he was on the committee, he became team manager, and he's still a contributor. You know, I'm going to say this because Jim's offered it when they build the new VIP room.
Yep.
Jim says the glass is from me.
Excellent. He's still contributing, isn't he?
Yeah. And he comes to all the functions.
Yep.
He's there. He's just a super guy as well. Very successful. Most successful in his glass industry business. You know, what can I say? He's one of my best mates. I gave him his first housing loan. So he reckons I was a good mate because
how quickly we've come back to the bank.
Yeah. It all
It's
started
all
with the
about
bank,
getting those customers in.
customers and money. Yeah.
You've seen Oakley?
Yes, I've seen it.
Let me say something. I gave Nikos Cakes
Yes.
his first loan.
Yes, Tass
I
and
gave-
Nick,
Yeah.
my brain's gone. Mush. Papusas, yes.
Papusas.
Yeah.
I gave Arthur his first housing loan,
Right.
and I gave Tangalakis, his father, his first housing loan. I mean, the old man saw me once and he said, "Do you know him?" He said, "To Costa." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, next time he comes, he sees that he doesn't pay to get in." So,
They
you know,
appreciated the support.
the banking was unbelievable. I mean, I helped so many people. I mean, people would come and say, "Yanni, what can I do? I need a housing loan." I said, "All right, we'll find a way to do it." And we did. Anyway, that's getting off this subject.
But it actually is key. It's actually very important because even today we have people who don't have a relationship with the bank, and the banks don't want a relationship.
No.
But 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 40 years ago, they did.
Yes.
And they were rewarded for it.
But the bank looked after the customers then, George. Now you're closing down your tellers, you're closing down your communication bases, and you're opening up ATMs, and you've got to know how to use it. Well,
You had to endure a remarkable change at the ASF. You took over from Johnny Constantine when John stepped away, just before David Hill came in and started to try his style of governance over the Australian Soccer Federation. What was it like in those days?
chaotic after I left. It became chaos, and I left them in credit. The balance in credit when I was treasurer. I left the ASF Heidelberg. The three of them when I was treasurer, I left them in credit. But then David Hill came in. David Hill stood against Peter Gray and Jack Riley. He beat them. And I say, I know the date he beat them. It was the 1st of April.
April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day. And to this day, I don't know who's listening, it was a change in the game of soccer because, you know, he came in with an axe to get rid of the ethnic names, and my only comment was replace them first and then get rid of them if you're going to get rid of them. Don't tell me all the Englishmen are going to flock to the grounds and, you know, change the name of South Melbourne to the Lakers and Heidelberg to the Burgers and all those names, which work now, but didn't particularly work then. You couldn't get rid of the Greeks because that's all there was going to see Heidelberg, or the Croats, or the Macedonians going to see Preston, whatever. That was the game. But if you got rid of them, then you suddenly, well, you know what happened at South Melbourne. You had to rebuild the club again. They wanted you to get rid of the Greeks on the committee and put Englishmen on, or Australians. Remember that time?
We've done a bit of history over the last couple of years, and George Constantine knows that we've done the story of the Moreland Football Club.
Yep.
Started as Coburg 100 years ago, and they've made this wonderful transformation. And you know, their reserve, Campbell Reserve, is now getting enormous support from the council, and it's going to be rebuilt with new stands and this, that, and the other. They've taken the cricket pitch away, and these are wonderful things. But I had a look at the club, and it's gone from the traditionally British, you know, and the Irish and the Scots and the Welsh, and we took a wonderful motion picture of all the players, and it's a magnificent representation of every culture that makes up Australia, the modern Australia. You can't hide what we are, and yet some people thought they could.
We've still got Teddy Smith there, though.
Ah, yes, the great Teddy Smith. Yes.
Played in the 1956 Olympics.
We had him sitting right in that
Same chair as you.
Yeah.
It's about time you gave me a ring, Smithy.
Smithy,
He listens. He listens. Don't worry, I know he listens. He's a good friend of the show.
Top mate of mine as well. Over all these years.
Easy to understand. He's a lovely fella. Tell us a little bit more about. Obviously, after that, you took a bit of a break, or how did you go after the ASF?
After the ASF, well, you asked me about David Hill taking over, and you know, for me that was a change in the game. And what happened to the ASF at that time, I can't remember all the transition, all the new presidents that were coming in into deficit until Lowy came in, and you know, with the government at that time saved the game.
Where did you go to from there, though?
From there, I remember my friends used to say, what do you do now? I said, I now go to the game that I want to go to, and I used to go and see my nephews play.
Yep.
And I can go to whatever game I want to go to without someone telling me that's where you're going this weekend. Because all my life, president, treasurer, whatever, there was always I always went to games.
Yeah.
I did 1 or 2 games every weekend. And they'd say, the president's here.
That's right, you're responsible.
I'd go to Springvale, I'd go anywhere. If there were trouble spots, and I'd get Fraser ringing up, he said, I've got a bloody hard game. I've got the Croats playing the Yugos. And I'd go to JUST and I'd get the 2 presidents to sit next to me. And I said, hey guys, you know who I am? Yes, I know who you are. We're not going to have any trouble today, are we? And there wasn't trouble because the president was sitting next to me. And if I saw a flare or anything, put it out. But they were fun games. They were I don't know. You know, I loved it. I loved it because
that passion.
The passion was there, and everyone knew each other, George. We knew it. I knew you. You tell me who's president now, and you say, I don't know. I know who's president.
Yeah.
But not the other clubs.
Tell me about Papa Samas, because he left quite a legacy, did he not?
Yep. Sammy loved the game.
Yes,
He's like me, he never played it. Loved the game, loved South Melbourne, loved the National League, fought for the National League. Arthur George and him, you know, we say, we're not coming up here to have another bloody a weekend of Arthur versus Sam. But he fought, he did well. I mean, he was my mate. He went to uni high and I went to Northcote High, and we sort of went up, different politically, different clubs, but I was with the federations and he was with the clubs. We stood against each other once. I beat him because I had the support of the federations and he had the support of the clubs, and he didn't speak to me for quite a while. And there was one function we went to, I think it was a Rothmans function, and we hadn't spoken, and I said, "Hey, you're a little bit older than me," but I said, "I've got to say this to you. We're not speaking, are we?" He said, "No." He said, "I wanted to be deputy chairman." And I said, "You know why, Sam? You remember in Canberra about 5 years ago, I was treasurer. Because I wouldn't give you the treasury figures, you knifed me, you replaced me. Gotcha, mate." But to his dying day, like I used to go and see him. A couple of times I took him home from hospital. He had this bloody lymphoma or whatever it was, and it just ate him. His bones were... But he still remains my memory, one of my best friends, fantastic for the game, loved it with a passion. I don't know anyone else that... Maybe Labazetta, but in a different way.
But it sounds also that you could have a fight or a misunderstanding, but you did it because you cared, and you didn't have a grudge.
No.
You didn't keep a grudge, sorry.
No,
like we hear some of them are doing right now. There's the game is full of enmity, full of haters, and I think we need to get back and remember some of the things that you guys did that made the game better. Yes, we had sensational players. Yes, the crowds were totally immersed and engaged, but everyone also loved the game.
We were elected by the general meeting. We had a board at the Australian Soccer Federation.
So the fans put you there.
But the clubs put us there. Like
the members.
The members would come along and they'd say, "Right, he's going to be chairman, he's going to be vice president," whatever. It was done. There was no, I don't know how it is at the moment. I don't, because I don't know anyone.
Well, just pause for a moment. We'll take a break, and when we come back, more of the Pioneers with our very special guest.
Welcome back to the Pioneers with our special guest tonight, John Dimtsis. John, 1977, maybe 76, preempting going into the old NSL. There was a few meetings, important meetings, and crucial to the Victorian clubs joining. Let us in on a little bit of what went on there and how important Muralbark's role in that was.
Well, the meeting started with Arthur George coming down and saying, "We're going to have this," and the federations didn't want it, so there had to be secret meetings.
Yep.
And the secret meetings at that time were being attended by Arthur George, Wallace, Weinstein, Papasavas, Kovac, myself, Jim Mangopoulos, Tom Bailey, Frank Buren, and then the decision was made. We were going to go in it.
Yep.
But when it got to the night of making the decision, and I don't know who was chairman there, maybe Kovac at the Victorian Soccer Federation, he said, "Is there any club that wants to go to form the NSL?" And there was nothing.
No comment.
No comment. No one wanted to go in until Tom Bailey put his hand up.
Of
Muralbark.
Yeah.
He said, "We're going in." And then within flash lightning, I don't know what order, Heidelberg, JUST in South Melbourne made the four. And that's how the Victorian side of it came to be. And I was there. I don't know whether I was treasurer, I think, at VSF at that time. And the sad thing is that of the people that I mentioned, I'm the only one still alive.
That is a sad thing, but
We
it's
go
a great
back
thing
to
that you're still
76,
alive.
77.
It was a
There's
long
some
time
there
ago.
to tell the story.
Well, you've mentioned a whole host of names.
Yep.
Jack Riley has
Yep.
come up many, many times. Not only because he was a goalkeeper way back in 1974 when Rally Rasic took the Socceroos to Germany, but he's played many, many roles over the years, and at various stages has taken on, various people at the top, whether it be Frank Lowy or others.
Jack is just terrific. A bit of a bit of a temper boy, that he'd just see you later. But
Calls a spade a spade.
yeah, I've known Jack since early 70s when he came to Heidelberg. He played for Heidelberg and coached Heidelberg.
Yep.
And then I was president of the VSF and Jack was chairman of the ASF. We did Sydney together. He upset the apple cart. He was saying that he was going to support John Constantine as chairman of the ASF, and then he wanted to run for chairman for himself. I remember going up and saying, Jack, we haven't got the numbers. We didn't. Brasasco won it. That created a bit of friction between Victoria and New South Wales for a while, but that was all done. And then Jack, continued on. Probably the best goalkeeper I've seen, because I remember Jack had a brain. It wasn't just that he could save the ball; he knew where the ball was going to go. And to this day, Jack. Well, I think he was number 2 to Frank Lowy. The next thing I find out, he's gone. So I ring up, I said, Jack, what happened? He said, you can't work with that bloke, he said. He does what he wants to do. So Jack's living in, I think, in Hobart at the moment, or he's in Tassie. To his credit, he still loves the club. We still communicate. He rings up to see how my health is. I rang him up when Jim Mangopoulos passed away. He said, let me know the church, and he came over. He paid his respects. The fact that Jim, who was president at the time when Jack was at the club, I can't speak highly enough of Jack Riley as a person.
Fantastic.
Just want to reiterate, I'm so grateful that you could make it in tonight. I know it's been a difficult time for you, and it's not easy to get around, so great to see you here, great to spend time with you. Love listening to your stories. We'll get you back again if we can some stage.
Well, that's probably half of it now, mate.
Yeah, no, that's right.
There is one more little story, and I think we might be able to find time.
Yep.
Your nephew said to you he wanted a shirt, a shirt.
I wonder what nice.
And
sure.
you said to him at the time, what did you tell him? You have to earn it?
That's right. I still love him though.
Did you get the shirt for him?
I'm going to tell a story though.
Go on.
He had the best left foot that I've seen.
We're talking about Lisa Merkus here.
Yeah, I know that.
He's in the studio with us.
He's
just
a lot
for the
bigger
record,
than me too.
Smiling at the back.
Finger hasn't stopped growing.
Best left foot.
You thanked me for coming in. I want to thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Because
mate. My pleasure.
a lot of these things, George, go through my mind, and sometimes people say to me, "Why don't you write down a few things?" And as time goes by, and I'm entering my 50th year next year as an administrator.
Beautiful.
Because I used to follow South Melbourne on Sundays, and I used to go to Heidelberg on Saturdays.
That's like going to church.
Yeah, that was it.
habit.
And I'm still a South Melbourne supporter. I love the club. It's that number 2 club. But you can't take yellow and black out of my blood. Although I'm back for Carlton. I'm back for Carlton because I'm a Greek.
Very good.
And they're blue and white.
Absolutely. Like you asked me.
What else can I say, George?
No.
Thank you both for having me here. It's I believe it's the last one of the year.
It's been our pleasure.
Appropriately, it's the last one of the year, and it's great that we have a real pioneer, someone who knew all the characters and how they.
I wish it could be the same, mate. I wish I could pick up the phone and I could speak to the treasurer of the Victorian Soccer Federation.
Listen, we might be able to arrange it between now and 2018.
Merry Christmas, Georgie.
All the very best, George.
See you in the new year. Merry Christmas, John.
Merry Christmas to both of you and my nephew that's sitting opposite me.
You'll get your
Happy
home
New
safely.
Year, and all the listeners. I hope there are some good
There's
listeners.
plenty of listeners.
And any
Merry
of my
Christmas
mates
to
that
them.
are out there that might be, give me a call, any one of you. We've got enough in the Soccer Federation. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure.
I've thoroughly
You're listening to
enjoyed
the
it.
Pioneers on FNR.
Brilliant.
Beautiful. Thank you. Bravo.
4 out of 10?
Yeah, terrific.
Four. You get a 10.
4. Tienes que ver.
No.
Awesome.
Good job.
FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Cilauro, no call! Score!
Salamini for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanowski with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Bath blasts. Yes, a ditch.
Vujovic.
Beautiful ball. Here's Bozanic. They might have won it.
The Pioneers with George Danikian and George Kotzanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.